The President of the United States is the head of state and the government, indirectly elected to a 4-year term via the Electoral College. Under the U.S. Constitution, the officeholder leads the executive branch of the federal government and is the Commander-in-Chief of the United States Armed Forces. 1. George Washington. The very first President of the United States of America was George Washington, who won a unanimous vote of the Electoral College. His tenure was from April 30th, 1789 to March 4th, 1797. George Washington was an American general and commander-in-chief of the colonial armies in the American Revolution from 1775 to 1783 and subsequently first President of the United States. 2. John Adams. John Adams was a founding father and the second President of the United States from 1797 to 1801. Before his presidency, he was a leader of the American Revolution that achieved independence from Great Britain. During the latter part of the Revolutionary War and in the early years of the new nation, he served the U.S. government as a senior diplomat in Europe. 3. Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was an American founding father and the third President of the United States from 1801 to 1809. He was the primary author of the Declaration of Independence. Jefferson was the nation's first U.S. Secretary of State under George Washington, and then the nation's second Vice President under John Adams. 4. James Madison. James Madison was an American statesman, diplomat, and founding father who served as the fourth President of the United States from 1809 to 1817. Madison was popularly acclaimed as the father of the Constitution for his pivotal role in drafting and promoting the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights. 5. James Monroe. James Monroe was an American founding father who served as the fifth President of the United States from 1817 to 1825. He was the last founding father to serve as president, as well as the last president of the Virginia dynasty. He was a member of the Democratic-Republican Party, and his presidency coincided with the era of good feelings, concluding the first party system era of American politics. 6. John Quincy Adams. John Quincy Adams was the sixth President of the United States, serving from 1825 to 1829. He previously served as the 8th United States Secretary of State from 1817 to 1825. He was the eldest son of John Adams, who served as the second President of the United States. 7. Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson was the seventh President of the United States from 1829 to 1837. Before his presidency, he rose to fame as a general in the U.S. Army and served in both houses of the U.S. Congress. His political philosophy became the basis for the Democratic Party. 8. Martin Van Buren. Martin Van Buren was the eighth President of the United States, serving from 1837 to 1841. A primary founder of the Democratic Party, he served as New York's Attorney General and U.S. Senator, then briefly as the ninth Governor of New York before joining Andrew Jackson's administration as the 10th United States Secretary of State, Minister to the United Kingdom, and ultimately the 8th Vice President from 1833 to 1837, after being elected on Jackson's ticket in 1832. 9. William Henry Harrison. William Henry Harrison was the ninth President of the United States, serving from March 4th to April 4th, 1841, the shortest presidency in U.S. history. He was also the first U.S. president to die in office, causing a brief constitutional crisis, since presidential succession was not then fully defined in the U.S. Constitution. 10. John Tyler. John Tyler was the 10th President of the United States, serving from 1841 to 1845, after briefly holding office as the 10th Vice President in 1841. He was elected Vice President on the 1840 Whig ticket with President William Henry Harrison, succeeding to presidency following Harrison's death 31 days after assuming office. 11. James K. Polk. James Knox Polk was the 11th President of the United States, serving from 1845 to 1849, a protege of Andrew Jackson and a member of the Democratic Party. He was an advocate of Jacksonian democracy and extending the territory of the United States. Polk led the U.S. into the Mexican-American War, and after winning the war, he annexed the Republic of Texas, the Oregon Territory, and the Mexican Cession. 12. Zachary Taylor. Zachary Taylor was an American military officer and politician who was the 12th President of the United States, serving from 1849 until his death in 1850. Taylor was a career officer in the United States Army, rising to the rank of Major General and becoming a national hero for his victories in the Mexican-American War. As a result, he won election to the White House despite his vague political beliefs. He died 16 months into his term from a stomach disease. 13. Millard Fillmore. Millard Fillmore was the 13th President of the United States, serving from 1850 to 1853. He was the last president to be a member of the Whig Party while in the White House, and the last to be neither a Democrat nor a Republican, a former member of the U.S. House of Representatives. Fillmore was elected vice president in 1848 and succeeded to the presidency when Zachary Taylor died in 1850. 14. Franklin Pierce. Franklin Pierce was the 14th president of the United States, serving from 1853 to 1857. A Northern Democrat who believed that the abolitionist movement was a fundamental threat to the nation's unity. He alienated anti-slavery groups by signing the Kansas-Nebraska Act and enforcing the Fugitive Slave Act. Conflict between North and South continued after Pierce's presidency, and after Abraham Lincoln was elected president in 1860, the Southern states seceded, resulting in the American Civil War. 15. James Buchanan. James Buchanan was the 15th president of the United States, serving from 1857 to 1861. He also served as a Secretary of State from 1845 to 1849 and represented Pennsylvania in both houses of the U.S. Congress. 16. Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was the 16th President of the United States, serving from 1861 until his assassination in 1865. He led the United States through the American Civil War, defeating the Confederate States of America and playing a major role in the abolition of slavery. 17. Andrew Johnson. Andrew Johnson was the 17th President of the United States, serving from 1865 to 1869. The 16th Vice President. He assumed the presidency following the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. Johnson was a Southern Democrat who ran with Lincoln on the National Union Party ticket in the 1864 presidential election, coming to office as the American Civil War concluded. 18. Ulysses S. Grant. Ulysses S. Grant was the 18th President of the United States, serving from 1869 to 1877. In 1865, as commanding general, Grant led the Union Army to victory in the American Civil War. 19. Rutherford B. Hayes. Rutherford Burchard Hayes served as the President of the United States from 1877 to 1881. He also remained Cincinnati City Solicitor from 1858 to 1861. He was a staunch abolitionist who defended refugee slaves in court proceedings. 20. James A. Garfield. James Abram Garfield was the 20th President of the United States, serving from March 1881 until his death in September that year after being shot 2 months earlier. A preacher, lawyer, and Civil War general, Garfield served 9 terms in the United States House of Representatives and is the only sitting member of the House to be elected president. 21. Chester A. Arthur. Chester Alan Arthur was the 21st President of the United States, serving from 1881 to 1885. He was a Republican from New York who previously served as a 20th Vice President under President James A. Garfield. Assuming the presidency after Garfield's assassination, Arthur's presidency saw the largest expansion of the U.S. Navy, the end of the so-called spoils system, and the implementation of harsher restrictions for migrants entering from abroad. 22. Grover Cleveland. Stephen Grover Cleveland was the 22nd and 24th President of the United States, serving from 1885 to 1889 and from 1893 to 1897. He was the first U.S. president to serve non-consecutive terms and the first Democrat elected president after the Civil War. 23. Benjamin Harrison. Benjamin Harrison was the 23rd President of the United States, serving from 1889 to 1893. He was a member of the Harrison family of Virginia, a grandson of the 9th President, William Henry Harrison, and a great-grandson of Benjamin Harrison V., a founding father, a Union Army veteran, and a Republican. He defeated incumbent Grover Cleveland to win the presidency in 1888. 24. Grover Cleveland. Stephen Grover Cleveland was the 22nd and 24th President of the United States, serving from 1885 to 1889 and from 1893 to 1897. He was the first U.S. president to serve non-consecutive terms and the first Democrat elected president after the Civil War. 25. William McKinley. William McKinley was the 25th President of the United States, serving from 1897 until his assassination in 1901. A member of the Republican Party, he led a realignment that made Republicans largely dominant in the industrial states and nationwide for decades. McKinley successfully led the U.S. in the Spanish-American War and oversaw a period of American expansionism with the annexations of Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Guam, the Philippines, and American Samoa. 26. Theodore Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt, also known as Teddy or TR, was the 26th President of the United States, serving from 1901 to 1909. Roosevelt previously was involved in New York politics, including serving as the state's 33rd governor for 2 years. He served as the 25th Vice President under President William McKinley for 6 months in 1901, assuming the presidency after McKinley's assassination. 27. William Howard Taft. William Howard Taft served as the 27th President of the United States from 1909 to 1913 and the 10th Chief Justice of the United States from 1921 to 1930. He is the only person to have held both offices. 28. Woodrow Wilson. Thomas Woodrow Wilson was the 28th President of the United States, serving from 1913 to 1921. He was the only Democrat to serve as president during the Progressive Era, when Republicans dominated the presidency and legislative branches. As president, Wilson changed the nation's economic policies and led the United States into World War I. 29. Warren G. Harding. Warren Gamaliel Harding was the 29th President of the United States, serving from 1921 until his death in 1923. A member of the Republican Party, he was one of the most popular sitting U.S. presidents while in office. After his death, a number of scandals were exposed, including Teapot Dome, as well as an extramarital affair with Nan Britton, which damaged his reputation. 30. Calvin Coolidge. Calvin Coolidge was the 30th President of the United States, serving from 1923 to 1929. A Republican lawyer from Massachusetts, he previously served as the 29th Vice President from 1921 to 1923 under President Warren G. Harding, and as the 48th Governor of Massachusetts from 1919 to 1921. 31. Herbert Hoover. Herbert Clark Hoover was the 31st President of the United States, serving from 1929 to 1933. A wealthy mining engineer before his presidency, Hoover led the Wartime Commission for Relief in Belgium and was a director of the U.S. Food Administration, followed by post-war relief of Europe. As a member of the Republican Party, he served as the 3rd United States Secretary of Commerce from 1921 to 1928 before being elected president in 1928. 32. Franklin D. Roosevelt. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, also known as FDR, was the 32nd President of the United States, serving from 1933 until his death in 1945. He is the longest-serving U.S. president, and the only one to have served more than 2 terms. His first 2 terms were centered on combating the Great Depression, while his third and fourth saw him shift his focus to America's involvement in World War II. 33. Harry S. Truman. Harry S. Truman served as president from 1945 to 1953. As the 34th Vice President in 1945, he assumed the presidency upon the death of Franklin D. Roosevelt that year. Subsequently, Truman implemented the Marshall Plan in the aftermath of World War II to rebuild the economy of Western Europe and established both the Truman Doctrine and NATO to contain the expansion of Soviet communism. 34. Dwight D. Eisenhower. Dwight David Ike Eisenhower was the 34th President of the United States, serving from 1953 to 1961. During World War II, he was Supreme Commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force in Europe and achieved a 5-star rank as General of the Army. 35. John F. Kennedy. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, also known as JFK, was the 35th President of the United States, serving from 1961 until his assassination in 1963. He was the first Roman Catholic and youngest person elected president at 43 years. Kennedy served at the height of the Cold War, and the majority of his foreign policy concerned relations with the Soviet Union and Cuba. 36. Lyndon B. Johnson. Lyndon Baines Johnson was the 36th President of the United States, serving from 1963 to 1969. He became president after the assassination of John F. Kennedy, under whom he had served as the 37th Vice President from 1961 to 1963. 37. Richard Nixon. Richard Milhous Nixon served the nation from 1969 until his resignation in 1974. A member of the Republican Party. He previously served as the 36th Vice President under President Dwight D. Eisenhower from 1953 to 1961, and also as a representative and senator from California. 38. Gerald Ford. Gerald Rudolph Ford, Jr. was the 38th President of the United States, serving from 1974 to 1977. A member of the Republican Party. Ford assumed the presidency after the resignation of President Richard Nixon, under whom he had served as the 40th Vice President from 1973 to 1974, following Spiro Agnew's resignation. 39. Jimmy Carter. James Earl Carter served as the 39th President of the United States from 1977 to 1981. A member of the Democratic Party. Carter served from 1971 to 1975 as the 76th Governor of Georgia and from 1963 to 1967 in the Georgia State Senate. He was the longest-lived president in U.S. history and the first to reach the age of 100. 40. Ronald Reagan. Ronald Wilson Reagan was an American politician and actor who served as the 40th President of the United States from 1981 to 1989. He was a member of the Republican Party and became an important figure in the American conservative movement. His presidency is known as the Reagan era. 41. George H. W. Bush. George Herbert Walker Bush was the 41st President of the United States, serving from 1989 to 1993, a member of the Republican Party. He also served as the 43rd Vice President from 1981 to 1989 under Ronald Reagan, and previously in various other federal positions. 42. Bill Clinton. William Jefferson Clinton was the 42nd President of the United States from 1993 to 2001, a member of the Democratic Party. He previously served as the Attorney General of Arkansas from 1977 to 1979 and as the Governor of Arkansas from 1979 to 1981, and again from 1983 to 1992. Clinton, whose policies reflected a centrist third-way political philosophy, became known as a New Democrat. 43. George W. Bush. George Walker Bush was the 43rd President of the United States from 2001 to 2009, a member of the Bush family and the Republican Party. He is the eldest son of the 41st President, George H. W. Bush, and was the 46th Governor of Texas from 1995 to 2000. 44. Barack Obama. Barack Hussein Obama is an American politician who was the 44th President of the United States from 2009 to 2017, a member of the Democratic Party. He was the first African-American president in American history. Obama previously served as a U.S. Senator representing Illinois from 2005 to 2008, and as an Illinois State Senator from 1997 to 2004. 45. Donald Trump. Donald John Trump is an American politician, media personality, and businessman who is the 47th President of the United States, a member of the Republican Party. He also served as the 45th President from 2017 to 2021 and was defeated for the second term. 46. Joe Biden. Joseph Robinette Biden, Jr. was the 46th President of the United States from 2021 to 2025, a member of the Democratic Party. He served as the 47th Vice President from 2009 to 2017 and represented Delaware in the U.S. Senate from 1973 to 2009. 47. Donald Trump. Donald John Trump is the 47th President of the United States, a member of the Republican Party. He also served as the 45th President from 2017 to 2021.